So where did the idea come from? कि यार I want to democratize or make it super easy कि यार ticket purchasing एक जगह आसान तरीके से हो जाए.
Yes, so myself and my co-founders, we all studied abroad. So I was in the UK, Rehan was in the US, and then the other Zion, he was in Turkey. And so we had all seen this whole digitized world, right? So buying tickets over there was very seamless. There was no concept of going to a supermarket and buying tickets. Everything was online. And we were all in the event management space as well. So I'd been doing events in the UK myself, and I had used a lot of these different ticketing platforms. But when we moved back, actually also a little background, the three of us have been best friends since we were kids.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah. So
How fun.
Zion's like my oldest friend, and then Rehan and I have also been best friends for many, many years. And so we wanted to do something together. We were all in the same space. And so we came back from uni and we saw that there was nothing like it over here. There was events happening, but people didn't know about those events. That was the biggest gap which we wanted to solve. Ticketing platforms existed, but they weren't focused on entertainment. And the events that they were focused on were only the large events. So they weren't actually giving access to all events. It was just the few big ones that happen every year. And so we wanted to change that. And so that's essentially how we got into it.
But इस तरह का precedent तो था नहीं पाकिस्तान में. Plus there was no market data on how big the events market is. What is the volume of transactions? What is the number of tickets sold? There was zero data available when you started this.
And to be
honest,
honest,
you started this 2019.
Yeah, 2019.
Literally the year before COVID.
Yeah. So when we launched our MVP, it was 3 months before COVID.
3 months
so
before
it took us
COVID.
a while, obviously, to
fantastic
make the platform.
timing.
It was terrible.
So you're launching an events platform for physical events 3 months before all physical events shut down.
Basically.
How did that feel?
Horrible. And no one believed in it to begin with. Right? So when we first came back and we wanted
Why
to do
is
this,
that?
because like you said, there didn't seem to be a market. There was no data available. People were still, nothing was digitized at that time.
And this is 2019.
It's 2019. I mean, a lot has happened in the last few years. Pakistan's digitization accelerated a lot, And even when we started, just as an example, cash on delivery was 95% of all of our orders. Today, we have zero cash on delivery. So things have changed a lot.
95% to zero. You have zero cash on delivery?
Zero at this point.
How many orders per day?
Per day, probably a few hundred, 200-300 orders.
So it's finally frictionless.
Yeah. So COVID really helped us
accelerate.
Yeah.
But you had to survive COVID to get there.
We had to survive COVID. And, that was tough. We had to do a lot of different things. It wasn't just a pivot of the current model in Ticketwala. We had to open an entirely separate company to help sustain Ticketwala as well. So there's a lot of different things that we tried out during that time. And, we took the personal hits in terms of obviously no salaries and all of that stuff as well. So it's tough, but it was an incredible learning experience. And, so just as an example, right now, when we had this whole India-Pakistan stuff that happened, it wasn't as scary as what would have been had we not gone through COVID, because we knew we survived, we knew what we need to do. And in fact, it's actually pushed us a little more after that happened, because there was a little red alert that happened that, oh shit, something like this might happen again. And so, you better make sure you have your runway. And so going back into the finances and seeing, okay, what things should we change to be safe in case something like that does happen again. Because you grow, things evolve, your costs go up as well. So if something like COVID happened today, it would be very, very different. Our costs are 10x, 20x of what they were back then.